After this tragedy, Steve and community activist Josephine Butler knew they had to do something to make this neighborhood and the whole city a better place for all people. They founded Washington Parks and People to promote safety, community, and wellness across all 8 wards of DC.
Hi, I'm Meghan Sauer.
And I'm Lauren Schild. Together, we have led Add to DC's Public Service Committee in this year's campaign for Parks and People. This is the 10th year Add to DC has participated in Add to's National Public Service Competition.
The luminaries you see around us are from Parks and People's hallmark event, Lights of Freedom. Since 1990, Parks and People has worked to draw attention to the importance of parks as historical landmarks and places for community. Lights of Freedom celebrates DC Emancipation Day by lighting over 2,000 luminary candles in Walter Pierce Park, where thousands of freed slaves were buried and forgotten until today. Lights of Freedom was the highlight of our campaign, but it took us a lot of hard work to get there. Let's start from the beginning with how we selected our client.
To determine our nonprofit client, we used an application process used in previous years. During the application period, we created an informational page on our club website, emailed potential clients, and promoted our search on social media. We received 16 applications this year. We then invited the top 3 directors to present to our committee and share their goals, challenges, and how they create positive change in the city.
We selected Parks and People from the nonprofit finalists because of their compelling story, which aligned well with our committee's strengths in creative and messaging strategy. Rooted in a fundamental belief in the connection of all people to the land, Parks and People connects residents across the district to nature and their neighbors, empowering them to reclaim public spaces. Over the past 30 years, Parks and People has worked side by side with communities to transform over 230 parks. We were impressed with their dedication to community action and empowerment.
However, they had lost touch with the current DC community. They had a small staff of 7, lacked a cohesive brand identity, and had an extremely limited returning volunteer base. Only 0.02% of all volunteers in the organization's history became active and ongoing members. Collaboration with the client brought to light that they were not suffering from a lack of funds. Rather, they needed people. From discussions with the client, we created 3 campaign objectives. First, build their volunteer base by adding 25 new volunteers to their list, and build their reoccurring volunteer base by 22%. Second, raise awareness of the client in DC by garnering at least 5,000 impressions and gaining 160 new followers across all social media. Third, promote 2 signature events, Seeds and Sprouts, an informational event meant for volunteers, and Lights of Freedom. Given our goal of volunteer acquisition, we wanted to focus the campaign in a specific neighborhood close to the parks the organization works in. We decided to focus the campaign on the Columbia Heights neighborhood, where they had the most success in parks, but less success in volunteer recruitment.
Through primary research, we identified stakeholder behaviors and roadblocks to volunteer conversion. Secondary research further explored those behaviors and demographics of Columbia Heights. We first went to a selection of client events to survey attendees. This allowed our committee to experience the client's brand in person and gain a personal understanding of our audiences. We also did an audit of the client's website and social profiles. We learned that many event attendees were unaware of volunteer opportunities, what those opportunities entailed, or even the client's mission. Our audits confirmed that this information was in fact difficult to find. Prospects wanted to get involved, they just didn't know how.
Through secondary research, we analyzed the demographics of the Columbia Heights neighborhood to ensure we could target individuals most likely to volunteer. Data revealed that the neighborhood has a high level of young professionals who have a stable income, are single, and have no children, and are thus more able to donate their time. We then read news articles and blog posts about personality and behavioral indicators of this demographic's outdoor engagement and activism. We learned that online media platforms featuring local news, politics, and events were most relevant to this demographic and of young professionals who enjoy a digital lifestyle but also want to develop in-person connections.
Based on our research, we determined 3 target audiences: urban zennials, newly urban millennials, and DC college students. Urban zennials are ages 35 to 41 and lean female in Columbia Heights. They value a work-life balance and recall a childhood spent outdoors before the digital age. We focus 60% of our efforts on this audience, given their prominence in the neighborhood.
Our second audience, newly urban millennials, are aged 22 to 34 and also lean female in the Columbia Heights neighborhood. They are values-driven, concerned with social causes, and want to make a change, but they just don't know where to start. We focus 30% of our efforts here because many millennials are new to DC and are thus less aware of social issues.
Our third target audience, DC college students, are aged 18 to 22 with a nearly even gender makeup. They're focused on school but still interested in social and political causes, as well as fulfilling volunteer requirements. We focus 10% of our efforts on this audience.
Columbia Heights is also one of the most ethnically diverse neighborhoods in DC. While we would target individuals based on the previous factors, we would also make sure our campaign reached a diverse audience that reflected the neighborhood. Our client also stressed a need for inclusive advertising, given their mission of creating opportunities for underserved populations.
To message to these audiences, we felt it was important to integrate our campaign with the brand that the client has had established for the past 30 years. While their messaging and brand identity needed updating, it mostly just needed to be made more digestible and streamlined. We decided to retain one of their multiple taglines for the campaign, knowing that we needed one strong message that encapsulated their brand. We chose the tagline, "Think Outside."
Think Outside captured the feeling and mission of Parks and People, which holds a steadfast belief that nature can and should be enjoyed by all populations, no matter, regardless of race, income, or neighborhood. This can be achieved by thinking outside or promoting outdoor wellness while also creating places all people can access. To urge our audience to start thinking outside, our call to action was become a volunteer.
Our creative would expand upon this concept of thinking outside by demonstrating that the outdoors are not as far away as our audiences might think. All creative would convey this through optimistic, lighthearted messaging that would resonate with wellness-oriented millennials. Given our clients' passion for community action and our audience's digital preferences, we decided to combine in-person tactics with digital marketing strategies.
To raise awareness of Parks and People and retain volunteers, we needed to raise funds for advertising. Our committee set up a GoFundMe page that we promoted among our contacts on Add2DC social media and on our own personal social media profiles. To integrate digital advertising with print materials and in-person promotion, we created a suite of assets, including a campaign landing page, paid social ads of both graphic and video nature, organic social content, digital web placements, a print flyer, and a print brochure. Here's an example of our video creative.
Our landing page was the volunteer conversion page that all other assets directed to. The client's original volunteer form had an overwhelming number of questions and was buried deep within their website. We needed to tailor this page to conversion so that they could gain more volunteers. We decided to change the site's architecture slightly by adding a dedicated volunteer tab to the navigation bar, making this information much easier to find. We then audited and streamlined the form so that copy spoke to the message, goals, and feeling of the campaign concisely and convincingly. We integrated a revised mission statement into copy and reduced the number of questions. While asking volunteers their interests and availability on the form, we also explained to them what they can do, how they can do it, and the impact that they could have. We also made sure to include campaign imagery at the top of the form so that users could take a seamless journey from the advertisement to the landing page.
Paid social ads included 5 graphic ads and 3 video ads. We created graphic ads that spoke to the surprisingly vast amount of park space available to our audiences. Copy included headlines like, "Discover your community in one of DC's 230 backyards." Designs reflected this surprising convenience, such as a woman on her couch, yet outside, or a woman on her computer with leaves wrapping around her. All ads featured individuals in their target demographics and with the diversity our client desired, mainly women of various racial backgrounds in their mid-20s to 30s. Our videos expanded on the theme of thinking outside and convenient green spaces. In addition to the collage video you just saw, we also created 2 longer campaign videos. These show our target audience in mundane indoor environments, where they find an element of the outdoors, such as a plant or gardening gloves. After finding these objects, their space suddenly turns into a lush and vibrant room full of plants. All of these ads incorporated our Think Outside tagline in central supporting copy and our call to action of become a volunteer.
We also created a print flyer and brochure that both incorporated the same visual elements as our ads, but complemented with rebranded and upbeat color schemes. The flyer quickly tells our audience the who, what, why, and how of volunteering. The brochure then elaborates on specific volunteering opportunities. These assets sought to excite our audiences while also giving them the information that they need to take those next steps. We share these materials at campaign events, interacting one-on-one with prospective volunteers, as well as individuals in the neighborhoods. All these assets were bolstered by an organic social media strategy. We created over 60 posts that were published on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter using imagery pulled from our graphic ads, as well as a photo gallery built by our committee.
At the two central campaign events, we promoted and capitalized on these assets. Acting as pulse checks, we were able to use these two events to monitor the effectiveness of the campaign and inspire new volunteers in person. For example, at the Lights of Freedom event, we spoke with individuals at the park about the client's mission and had 13 new volunteer signups that day. Our client also commented that it was the quickest volunteer cleanup in the event's 8-year history. At the event, we live tweeted and Instagram, driving spikes in social engagement on the client's profiles.
All of our media, paid, donated, and earned, catered to our target audiences. For paid media, our Lights of Freedom event was promoted in Free in DC, a local blog and Twitter profile that targets millennials and zennials with limited budgets. This publication aligned with our audience's values for digital journalism and social media news outlets. For donated media, our creative was featured in Capital Communicator, a digital news outlet for the local communications industry. For paid advertising, the majority of the $317 that we raised went to advertising on social media. We released 6 paid ads across Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, garnering over 52,000 impressions.
In addition to donated media and paid social, our campaign used earned media elements. The Lights of Freedom event was featured in 730 DC Newsletter, DCline.com, and Hoodline.com. These media organizations cover local news and neighborhood politics, aligning with our clients' outlook and with millennial and zennial interests.
The committee was also able to secure airtime on 2 local news stations. This was a huge win for our campaign because both stations came to Lights of Freedom. This was the first time in the event's 8-year history that it received television coverage. The news outlets competed for coverage of the event, as well as for time speaking with Parks and People co-founder Steve Coleman. Ultimately, the client and their event was featured on the 7 o'clock and 11 o'clock news on both ABC 7 and WUSA 9.
Now that we've taken a look at our campaign's concept, creative execution, and media placement, let's talk about results. First, the numbers. We had a committee of over 18 members who spent more than 131 hours working on this campaign. We fundraised $317 that went toward paid advertising and media placements. With this, our campaign generated over 3.1 million impressions with a campaign value of over $105,000, all at zero cost to Washington Parks and People.
To recap, the goals of our campaign were to raise awareness of the organization and increase volunteer acquisition. During the campaign, 59 new volunteers signed up. This constituted over 300% increase in average monthly volunteer signups and far surpassed our goal of gaining 25 new volunteers. The client also gained 109 new social followers. While we didn't reach our goal of 160, we earned the organization 55 new followers each month of the campaign. And at this rate, we should reach that goal by the end of June.
From the 59 new volunteers, 54% were in our urban zennial target audience and 39% were in our newly urban millennial target audience.
Impressions on Twitter and reach on Facebook both quadrupled over the course of the campaign.
Based on Google Analytics, we calculated that we had over 1,600 landing page visits over the course of the campaign.
Our committee was thrilled to share Parks and People's message of community action, neighborhood revitalization, and environmentalism with new audiences, digitally and face-to-face. We will soon provide the client with a guide to marketing best practices and PDF versions of our print assets for them to use in their future marketing endeavors.
It was an amazing experience becoming a part of positive change in the community in real time. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Excellent.